Welcome back to Unique Minds of the Okanagan. I'm Rob O'Day, and we are on location in Kelowna with Alex Sevigny, a renowned producer within the podcast community and the music industry. How you doing, Alex?
Good, man. How about you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having us over and doing this interview. Do you want to tell the people basically who you are and where you're from and how you got started on the journey and the careers that you are in?
Yeah, for sure. So, like you said, my name is Alex Sevigny. I'm a producer here in the Okanagan. I've been producing for over 10 years now. I was thinking about it the other day, and I was very surprised to see that number because time just flies by. But yeah, so I've been producing for 10 years. I started in high school. My school had a music composition program, and they had a couple little recording studios. Nothing crazy because it's high school, but I just really found my love for producing there, just hanging out in the studio, recording stuff, all of the small stuff like running cables and, troubleshooting technology, all that good stuff. And yeah, I've just kind of always stuck with it, even if other stuff was going on in my life. It's been the one huge constant this whole time.
That's interesting. The main parts that most people don't enjoy of it are some of your favorite aspects, the cables.
Well, I maybe overstated that a bit, but yeah, I mean, it is fun.
It is.
Because when you solve the problem, like the light bulb goes off, you're like, oh my God.
Yeah,
there it
especially
is.
even if it's like the smallest little things in production.
It
Which school
always
did you go
is.
to?
For high school?
Because I've never seen a high school that has music production.
Yeah, so I went to high school in Salmon Arm, so not a lot of people from there. It's a pretty small town, but they had such a wonderful music program that really nurtured my love of music from an early age. I think grade 11 and 12, I took the music composition classes, and I just loved it. It was so cool. I think more schools should definitely have that program.
Yeah, that's like if I would have had that option versus like learning music theory and things, I believe that would have been a different thing because like that is really cool to hear. Salmon Arm is probably one of my favorite areas within our interior for music scene, to be honest.
So artistic for such a small town.
Yeah, and the amount of talent that's come out of there that people don't know about is quite insane.
Yeah.
So you've been producing for 10 years. Is that professionally or just in general?
Obviously, so I'm 29 years old, so I mean more than 10 years now, but obviously it starts off as a hobby and you're doing stuff I wouldn't recommend going and listening to the stuff I was doing 10 years ago. But I'd say within the last 5 to 7 years is when I started doing it a lot more professionally. It had always been a dream. Podcasts are like the day job, I guess I would say, because there's millions and millions of podcasts in the world, so there's quite a lot of demand for post-production and stuff. Podcasting is one area where the editing is maybe one of the more important parts too, because there's so much stuff that gets recorded that you don't need, whether it's the ums and ahs or someone is just not really saying anything, but they're using a lot of words to not say anything. And then you kind of don't need that. No one wants to listen to that. So that's huge. And then just getting good source material too with the audio is huge. A lot of stuff is just like Zoom recordings, and then you have to do the best that you can with it just to make it sound listenable. So yeah, it's one of those things where it really comes down to all of those tedious things of just trying to make it sound perfect, as close as you can.
Do people just seek you out now?
Well, I work for a company, so most of the client relations and marketing and stuff is for them. So I'm almost on the back end, kind of. I wouldn't say that podcast clients are seeking me out as much as the company I work for. And then the busier the company is, the more work I have too. And podcasts have really exploded since 2020. It's become a very prominent media form that I really think was much more fringe before that.
No, totally. And I definitely think that podcasts are probably one of the number one ways to learn anything nowadays. So you listen to a lot of podcasts in your day, I assume.
I would say so, yeah. Generally 2 a day, 5 days a week or more for going on 5-6 years now. That's a lot of podcasts.
That's incredible, actually, to think about when you break it down to the numbers of how many you do on weekly. Have you found any that you have drawn yourself to that you still listen to daily just because you're like, I really enjoyed the content?
Yeah, there's some, like when they verge more into, I'd say, philosophy or technology and stuff. That's like quite a lot more interesting than some other stuff, like if it's like business related.
Do you find yourself, like, when you're editing, going back and listening to certain points over and over?
Yeah, especially if there's like stuff that was kind of hard to remove, you got to listen to it and you start to go a bit crazy. You're like, does this sound natural, or have I just listened to it too many times now that at no point is it ever going to sound natural again?
No, it's true.
Like when you say the same word multiple times, it stops having that meaning. You're like, how is this even a word?
When it comes to producing podcasts, you have that down to a science, from what I've heard, and that you're extremely efficient in what you do. And musically, when you produce music, it's creative beyond belief. Some of the stuff that I've heard you write from multiple artists, because you play locally in Planetkiller, Muscle Crow, and there's no more, right?
For local, yeah,
but you are also in projects that are quite known globally, and it's amazing to see the progress, because we performed with each other right out of the pandemic, and that's kind of when I met you, and to see the progress of you guys performing live to the music that you're putting out now too, it's quite insane. And you do most of the production.
Yeah.
So you do the writing of the songs.
Yeah, with Planetkiller specifically, like we do share the writing duties to an extent. Like there are a couple songs still where like I wrote it start to finish and it was kind of like my vision, but in other songs, like most of this EP, we kind of all sat in the same room and we're like, okay, what about this? What about this? How do you guys feel about this? And a lot of ideas were just thrown at the wall and we were like, sweet, let's try it and let's do it. And we experimented with a lot of stuff that way. But then there are other projects, like you said, globally, where I've people I'm working with in the States or in England or Scotland, the UK. And yeah, it's just maybe like I've written the instrumental and then someone else puts the vocals on it and we like come together and I do the production and then we put it out there. It's been quite a fun journey experimenting with that and doing stuff remotely.
Yeah, that's one thing I really wanted to dive in, because when talking with Josh the other day, we were diving into the EP and how the process was about recording, and we were talking about how you guys got to sit down and write it as a band. Was this EP more enjoyable to work on than the previous two, I believe it is, that you guys had?
Yeah, we have 2 EPs before this current one. I don't know about more enjoyable, I guess, to an extent. It was certainly a longer process. Like we chose to go a longer route instead of just like write the song, record the song, ship it. We kind of like wrote it, tweaked it, re-recorded stuff again, tweaked it, and then finalized it. And it was definitely enjoyable, but it was also harder, I would say.
Sometimes as a musician, I find you can hit a block. Not just a creative block where you can't write music, but a block where your skill level can kind of stall and you end up sitting and writing the same stuff. And it's not really based off your inability to write new music, but your inability to focus on something new. And I find that's always been like the hardest thing for me. Have you ever felt that, like challenge-wise, that you have a hard time pushing yourself as a musician?
I think that's part of why I surrendered to doing things more as a group with this EP. Because like you, I can be pretty rigid and I'll be like, okay, this is the song, like this is how it needs to go. But just taking that step back and letting other people into that process did allow me to open up more so and like maybe write a different kind of riff that I'd never thought of doing before. And then now I'm writing riffs kind of like that and building on that. So I guess the more you can let those new ideas in, the more you can increase your like abilities just by virtue of different things coming out.
Yeah, and it's definitely like a humbling experience too, I find, at least personally for myself, because as I was saying in our interview, you're extremely humble for your talent. And I like what you are capable of doing musically is pretty insane.
Well, thank
Especially
you, man.
what you think about, and you this is my idea. The idea alone is insane. It is super talented. It's technical. It's fast. In a musical standpoint, from a metal musician, at least like what we play, it's perfect in the sense of where it goes, the placement, how long you're putting certain riffs. Like your production value makes your structures, I feel, amazing. It's not easy to create things on levels that you guys do. Have you worked with other genres?
Absolutely.
Because I know you have a side project yourself that is more indie soft, and it's quite enjoyable. I believe it was, I can't remember what it's called.
Are you
Morning.
talking about, yeah, 5,
Yes, it's
5
got-
p.m. morning.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank
so
you.
that's my project to make, it's really pop punk inspired, but I think in execution it comes off a little bit heavier. Like it's got some hard rock to it, it's got some indie rock to it, like you were saying. And it's just an opportunity for me to make different sounds because metal is so dissonant and heavy, which I love, but sometimes there's softer ideas to portray with music.
Yes.
So that's what that project is for. And I will say, I appreciate your kind words about the flow and everything. I really appreciate that. With all the time I've spent writing, like I definitely have written my fair share of songs where there are moments where you're like, like this doesn't work. This is weird. Why do this? So at this point, I have a really good focus to just say like, okay, this riff goes for 8 bars, and then 2 bar or like a 2 beat pause, and then the next part, and then I've just gotten pretty good at getting the flow going and not getting bogged down by like weird parts that people are gonna not want to listen to. I mean, as much as possible. Like no one's perfect, but
Do you produce electronic at all?
I do. So I have like a lo-fi project called Should Be.
Okay.
So it's like boom bap, lo-fi hip hop kind of stuff.
Sweet.
And in high school, I did try my hand at dubstep. I feel like everyone has that phase
Yep.
where they were like trying to make loud, obnoxious
Yeah, it's like
dubstep.
color in your hair.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, and there's like a lot of cool learnings that comes from experimenting with the different genres too, I find. Because it's just a different perspective on writing and different things that make a song good in different genres.
So with Planetkiller, you guys recently had your EP release at Jackknife, I believe, and the Unending opened for you. How was getting to officially release it to the public? And because I know that the build up is the hardest part, and that moment of finally getting to step on stage and for an album release is magical. So how was it?
I would absolutely say it was magical. And I'll mention Stone Spear opened too. So Stone
Thank
Spear,
you.
Unending, then Planetkiller, and all the bands killed it. Very dope. And yeah, it's such a crazy feeling having the EP done because we started writing it in early to mid 2022. And it was just a process of iterating on what we had and writing new stuff. So like over 2 years, if I did my math right there. And then there was a moment during the production where I was working on mixes and stuff. I was doing revisions. I was like scrutinizing things super heavy because I'm kind of OCD and I like want things to sound a certain way. And there was a point where I just had to say, I think it's done. And I'm going to stop. And I still listen to them a few times just to make sure, any tweaks and anything. But I was like, this is done. This is good. And then releasing it, doing the EP show, I feel like I have whiplash. Like it's just been crazy. Now I'm kind of like, okay, what next? Because it's very all-encompassing for periods of time during making it. And I think there was many times where I was like, I don't know how I'm ever going to finish this. Just because it is very daunting when you pick apart all the individual elements that go into an EP. And it's crazy that we even start these things with how much work goes into it. Mm-hmm. But to be finished it is such a gratifying feeling.
Right? It's finally like a weight lifted off your shoulders.
Exactly.
It takes a special kind of person to be a good producer, because if you don't have patience, you're not going to sit there and wait until it's perfect to be able to release it. You're going to put it out, and then down the road, you're going to realize, oh, wow, the high end's way too eerie, and it hurts my ears in a car. So,
Yeah.
and that's like we were talking earlier. It's like those are the things that when you're listening to music, people who aren't musicians or producers don't understand or appreciate. Most people hear a song, I like the beat.
Yeah, or the vocals. Like,
And
those are
then
the two
vocals
things,
down the
yeah.
road. And then once you've listened to the song 50 times, you're like, oh, I really like that guitar riff that popped in for 2 seconds that nobody knows that the producer had to yell at the guitar player to do. You know what I mean? So
Some like millisecond thing that happened, and you're like, that's cool.
yeah, half a cowbell. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
it's a weird thing. Like, have you ever found that have you ever used something that's not musical as an instrument in a recording before?
Oh man, yeah. I've, like banged on like a mic stand with like a drumstick, or just all kinds of weird stuff like that. Or like there's certain things you can do with a guitar that just sound terrible, and then like I've been like, yes, this is the sound I want. Or like when you're picking behind the nut on the headstock, I love that sound.
The sound of like picking piano
Or just feedback.
strings. Yeah.
I love feedback.
Yeah, that's one that I've always, I don't know what it is. Something about feedback that just sounds so good.
Yeah.
Just standing in
Well,
front
when
of
you
your amp.
mean to do it though, when your
Yeah.
noise gate's not working, then you're like, this is terrible. But
Yeah. No, and that's true. That's like another aspect of music too, that like production is like, you're not just doing the EQing, the compression, you have to do noise gates. You also have to like understand, especially working with an EP, that they've all got to sound the same.
consistency is
Throughout
hugely
the whole
important.
album.
Yeah.
And that's where I feel a lot of producers have a hard time, because they can get the song to sound good. But to get that song to sound like the next song, and the song to sound like the next one in production value, is where a lot of producers I find have a hard time.
Mm-hmm.
I've worked with producers many times, and you have them send you 4 different mixes, and they all sound different, but it's not the sound that you're wanting, and it's because they're not used to doing
That genre.
that genre. Or
It is very hard. Like that is probably one of the biggest struggles of producing for people other than yourself. Is just understanding what people want and understanding what people are hearing in something, because it's not necessarily what you hear in something. So you have to like take a step outside of yourself and be like, what is the essence of this thing that I'm trying to replicate? And 2, not having the same gear that that person had, or not knowing what they used. Like I'm just guessing how to make my equipment make that sound. These days it might be especially difficult for that, because there's Bluetooth speakers, there's AirPods, earbuds and stuff like that. People listen to music on their TVs sometimes, or in the car,
just on their phone.
phone. That's a big one too.
That's the hardest. Is like that.
It's
I'm
really
guilty of it.
really easy to make something sound like crap on a phone.
Right? Yeah. It's definitely, I feel like production is super underrated or underappreciated for how much value it brings to both podcasts, music, video, editing in general. The people who can make it happen and do it properly and like not destroy your ears.
That's a big one too.
Right, because that's one thing I'm terribly guilty for, is I tend to put in too much high end because I can't hear the high end because my ears are damaged. So I put too much, and then it's irritable to normal people's ears. So it's things. That's where I love having Andy and friends who are great producers, because I can't hear that. I've never been able to hear it. So it's like I said, it's always been an enigma to me, is trying to understand EQing, compression. That's the magic behind music, though. Like, it's not just the artist. The artist puts it on the table, and the producer makes it happen.
They have the vision, and
Yeah.
you have to be the tool to make that happen to an extent.
If it wasn't for you doing the production, it wouldn't be done. You know, there's always going to be
Yeah.
the one guy in the band who just has that passion beyond the writing of the music. And as bands nowadays, it's not just writing and putting music out. Like, how much effort does it take for you to be able to put out a release on Spotify prior?
So much work.
Right?
I
It's
think
not
it's
just putting it
very
out.
underappreciated by a lot of musicians and non-musicians, just how much it takes to schedule things, release things, like plan it all out, and to like deploy in a way such that it actually gets heard by people, because it's way too easy to put something out and have no one like really see it. There's so much competition for attention and everything, and it's really easy for something to just fall by the wayside.
Do you guys do your releases independently, or have you? I've never asked if you guys are signed or not.
Planetkiller is independent, so we do that all ourselves. I've done some things with labels, but it usually comes down to like they want to do the merch kind of thing because that's how they make money, and then the promotion still falls on our shoulders to do. So
Okay.
it's hard, yeah.
What's been the biggest challenge with Planetkiller that you've had to this day?
The biggest challenge,
That you personally, your personal challenge of over the journey.
I'd say like maybe having enough time in the day, because there's like so much to do and that I want to do, and sometimes you have time but you don't have inspiration or motivation, and you don't want to do subpar work when something demands your A+ efforts. But yeah, having time and inspiration and both at the same time is quite challenging. I'm super guilty of putting too much pressure on myself too, because like you said, you're like, oh, I should be doing more. In reality, you're probably doing a ton already, but you're just sitting there like, man, I gotta do more, I gotta do more. Like, I should be doing more right now, or whatever. Like, I pressure myself so much with this stuff.
Yep. No, I can relate to that. My entire life is just I'm not doing enough.
Yeah.
I'm always trying to do something, and I think that's the being a creative.
Absolutely.
I think that's the main. Creatives are almost always like that. When they're in inspiration mode, it's inspiration mode. Nothing. They're blinders.
Mm-hmm.
You know, everything is focused on what you want to get done, inspired. But when you're not, it's the opposite of claustrophobic. It's just a giant open space, and you know, you're just you don't know where to go because it's like there's so many different things to do. But
Really an infinite sea of possibilities.
yeah, but it's like without that inspiration or that motivation to want to pursue it, it definitely becomes a daunting feeling. Especially like you mentioned, like as musicians, we're always constantly trying to push ourselves. We're definitely our hardest critics.
I would say so, yeah. That's a problem I run into all the time. Like, I'll have to ask Rochelle, like, hey, is this good? Because I just look at it and I'm critiquing it every second.
Yeah, it's definitely hard. Besides podcasts and music, what other hobbies do you have?
I love video games. Like, it's a pretty common one, but I just love them.
What kind of games are you into?
Largely like first-person shooters, RPG games, stuff
Okay.
like that. I like the action and it's very distracting. You know, you're in that moment and you got to do something that instant.
Do you find that that fast-paced, hectic games calm you down after you're stressed?
Yeah, weirdly enough, yeah, because it's distracting. Like, I can't sit there and overthink if I've got to solve a problem in real time and someone's shooting at me or something. You know, absolutely.
Games are, I think it's a common thing within, me and Josh were talking about this too, is like video games, D&D, Pokemon cards, like there's always a weird fantasy-based escape for artists, as if we don't live in a fantasy enough.
Yeah.
You know, it's...
We need that. It's escapism, right?
Yeah, yeah. Do you find that you have a specific genre of music that tends to be your go-to, besides metal?
It'd be like pop punk or hip hop. Those are the easiest on the brain, I'd
funny.
say. Like, it's nice for relaxing.
I love hip hop. That's why I ask, because I find that it's funny. You don't think a lot of metalheads would like hip hop, but
A ton, dude.
there's a
It's
ton
crazy.
of artists out there who like metalheads who love hip hop, and I'm like, I think it's because we grew up in a generation with like the new metal.
Oh,
too,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like if you listen to older metalheads, they don't like hip hop.
No.
No, they hate it. But we grew up with like bands that had hip hop in it, and I think it's one thing I love about music is there is no barriers. I think that instrumental music is just on that teeter point of breaking through with bands like Polyphia.
Yeah. I mean,
Plenty, and
you see artists that stand out in that field, like Animals as Leaders and stuff, like they broke through, but I feel like the ceiling to break through to getting there is much higher than, say, if you're in a four-person band with singing and rock and stuff.
yeah, and I think it's just the relatable aspect because
Yeah, I think
like,
people can pick up on the emotional content of singing, but musically it's a bit harder. Like me and you, I'm sure, could sit down and listen and be like, yo, this song feels like this person is experiencing anxiety or something, and connect on that. But the broader public, I think, struggles to connect to that extent.
I think it's the timings. Personally, I think it comes down to breaking out a 4/4
Yeah, there's a
and
lot.
like just a 4 on the floor, like just a simple break beat. I think as soon as you steer clear away from that, people get scared. Personally,
I find a problem with that because either you're in the 4/4 and the nerds don't like it,
yeah,
or you're in the weird times and then the normal people can't get it. And like so much of my music is right between those
it's
two.
right. And I think that's
Yeah.
that's exactly what we were saying. Like trying to connect the listener to the music you want to write, and the music that they want to hear is the hardest. And like, yeah, no, that's definitely where it comes down to. I think it's just that, like, even with vocalists, like I've had vocalists where you try and put a 7 in, a 7/8, and they get confused because they're not just rocking. They're not doing that
Totally.
that dance that they need to be doing. And I think that's where people kind of get a little scared is with metal, is that there's so much to know. And it's like being a professional hockey player. Like I'm not going to be able to relate to somebody who plays hockey because I have no idea about sports. I'm not a sports guy, right? So I can understand it and appreciate watching it. But as soon as you dive into the training, the history, it's like it's over my head. And I think that that's the same thing with metal and like instrumental music, is that it's, like I said, it's on that teeter point where people are like starting to appreciate and starting to be like, oh, this is really cool. Like you don't need vocals to sing to enjoy music. Because people listen to instrumentals, whether they're watching movies, TVs. You watch a YouTube video and somebody talking to you, listen to the background.
Yeah.
Instrumental, very subtly underneath, right? So we listen to music instrumentally daily, and I don't think it's just so background.
People are used to kind of
They're used to
ignoring
hearing it, you know what I mean? So it becomes that, how do they connect? How do you connect to them? And as an artist, I think that is our hardest challenge. It's not the creating music, it's not the producing, it's not putting it out there, it's finding the right person to play it to.
Absolutely. And then the constant learning and everything.
Yeah.
It really makes being a musician and a producer such a, like, it's never-endingly frustrating and challenging, but so rewarding because of it.
Yeah. If there was any advice that you'd give an up-and-coming producer or an up-and-coming musician, what do you think it would be? If that would be the greatest advice that you could give them from the things that you've learned?
I'll start with musicians. I will say, don't let perfect be the enemy of the good. Like, I think musicians we do this. I'm calling myself out here. But we spend hours and hours listening to our stuff being like, oh, should I change something like 0.1%? Or should I like take this thing out? Or we really overthink and second guess ourselves on stuff. Like if you write something and it sounds good, hell yeah. Like you don't have to scrutinize it so much that it's paralyzing.
Yeah.
And I think that's the default for a lot of musicians, is just to be in this analysis paralysis with their music for so long. You really just got to go with your energy and get stoked on what you're doing and ride that wave. For producers, say maybe just like try to take stuff a little bit less seriously, because I'm super guilty for this. Like if I'm working on a song and I think it sounds great, and then I get like a revision note, like I'm used to it. Like this happens all the time now. It's just part of the process. But sometimes you can take it a little bit too personally, and you just got to be like, no, it's a song. It's cool. Whatever. We'll just tweak this little thing. just like any job at the end of the day, like try not to take it too seriously and just enjoy the process, I guess.
Everything is progress.
Yeah.
Every little step, every little failure, every little I shouldn't have done that is progress to making you a master of your craft. Because you can't. If I would love to know or hear some of like the B-sides from the masters. You know what I mean? Like what songs they didn't like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'm curious. That would be an amazing experience because I think that it would humble a lot of people. Because there's famous people out there who are hard on themselves, and there are people who are nobodies and they're hard on themselves. But we're all people. At the end of the day, realistically,
Gotta accept that to be human is to be flawed, and our art reflects that.
That's well said, because art is how we express it, and people love it, and that is exactly what it is, right? Art is based off of our flaws and trying to perfect the little insecurities we have of ourselves, especially as musicians.
Yeah, music would be super boring if we were all perfect people making perfect songs. I mean, maybe lots of people would like that, but I feel like on a deeper level, like there would just be less artistry to it. Like what can you say with your music if it's just a perfect, like, clinical, all specced out, no flaws at all, you know?
Yeah.
There's
beauty in failure and flaws.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or else we'd all be too beautiful.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Like we all gotta have
so
that.
Boring.
Yeah, it would be. I appreciate you doing this with me.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me on today.
Awesome, thank you. We'll see you guys next time.